So if you want to improve your coaching experience for your group training, check out my progression regression model and how to integrate it into your coaching and gym system to make it better. Hey, what's going on? Back with Coach's Corner. Today's episode, we're going to go a little bit back into the importance of having a system, a progression regression model for your exercises. Now, I went through, on the other side, I got a couple more, so like 6 different movement patterns. Obviously, there's more, but I just wanted to demonstrate the importance of it in, again, the group training model, just your training model, period. And I'm going to go through at least a couple of these, showing them and how I demonstrate them, even in a class setting. For example, and I'm going to use small group personal training because we have a 4-week program and we always have a baseline exercise, right? So, and I'll explain this, like for instance, in our squat model, for example, right? And then being able to be fast, not just coaching it, showing it, but being able to make switch ups for different people. Like our small groups, we have folks, we got 18-year-olds to like 68-year-olds, people with replaced hips, people with all types of previous training injuries, things they can't do because of their anatomy and so on and so forth. And we have to give them a safe exercise that's going to look good, we can push, and again, it's not going to beat up their joints. They're going to be challenged, but it's not going to beat them up. So let's look at the squat progression, and just imagine everything is kind of like from this easier to harder kind of progression going down. Now, and I'll touch on this a little bit too, because how do we, what's the easy way to make things harder? Well, load it more, right? If I got a 35-pound kettlebell goblet squat, if I go to 45, that's harder. But this, think of it in terms of a lot being, stability, or like a progression of the difficulty of exercise, right? If we don't take load into account. So number one, here for the squat, we have an assisted squat or body weight box squat. And actually, I'll go through these and then I'll show them to you. And I'll show them how I'd explain this in class too, right, as I'm moving through. So assisted squat or body weight box squat. Then we have a goblet squat, a double kettlebell rack position squat. From there, I did other variation. I'll explain why I mean that, right? Because from double kettlebell squat, we usually go from to barbell front squat. And then from there, we go to a back squat. But we have a lot of, for instance, we have a safety squat bar, which I'm a bigger fan of than a regular barbell back squat because a lot of people just can't get into that position. We have a belt squat. We have a pendulum squat, right? So we have a lot of different, we have a Duffalo bar. So we have different things that we can also, and that's the other variations, that might be a very good fit for somebody that's a beginner that needs more stability, that doesn't do well with a bar on their back, the axial loading, right? And I'll explain this as if for example, if this is a small group, we always have a baseline exercise. So let's call it the baseline exercise for this program is a double kettlebell squat, right? And we're going to do sets of 8 reps. So 8 reps is going to be in the program, and I'm breaking this down. And I'm going to show that baseline exercise. Like, guys, our baseline exercise is a double kettlebell squat. And I show it and I demonstrate it. Okay, we're going to go stay upright, bring the elbows forward a little bit so our ribs come down. I'm going to go soft knees, pull my butt straight down. Right, so I'm trying to stay as vertical as possible. Now, if you have tight restrictions in your ankles, again, this is where kind of we can use constraints like a wedge. Get on the wedge. Now I can go a little bit more upright here, soft knees forward, butt down. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Okay, so if 2 kettlebells is too challenging for you, you can go into that goblet squat variation, take a challenging bell. You're going to grab it, crush it, keep the elbows down, stay upright, same thing, soft knees, butt down. Keep the heels down, get as much range of motion as you can. You can also take another variation. Notice I don't like saying regression because it makes people feel like they can't do stuff. But like, if that's not the best version for you, you can go with a body weight assisted squat. So these ones, again, for a beginner, and I would even say before a beginner to somebody that's completely untrained, right? So this might be a great variation where 8 reps, to stay very vertical might be a good option. So this is kind of like that second regressed option, and or we might go a body weight squat to box, right? Same thing, we'll just tell them soft knees, touch the box, right? And depending on, again, how low the box is. Now, let's say we have, we get pretty heavy bells. So I would say I'd I would assume that most people would be challenged on this baseline double kettlebell squat. But in that model, I can also go, hey, if 4-8, you're crushing all the kettlebells that we have, or if you have a gym where, you know, your KBs go up to 72 and somebody's not getting challenged by 72, boom, now we're showing, we're gonna go to this next progression, which is our front squat. Obviously, I don't have the weight on here, but I would go and show them that variation. Same thing, keeping the elbows up, push the bar into you a little bit, Frankensteinish, right? Same thing, soft knees, stay as upright as you can, and I'm gonna show that variation. Now, obviously, I'm talking you guys through that here. You know, we've had folks where they're like, you know, too tight with the shoulder mobility, can't do the front squat. You know, they have a tough time with double kettlebells, but they're strong enough to load their legs. I'm like, okay, great. We're gonna go to, now I know I get it that a lot of gyms may not have that, but I'm gonna go, okay, now you're gonna be on a pendulum squat, right? Or you're gonna be a safety squat bar, which you can see here, and we show that. And you can see how all of these are actually like close by. So if I'm doing a small group model and it's like, hey, this is where we're doing our squats, now people can move around and go, they can do their variation. Goblet squat, double KB squat, front squat, safety squat bar, pendulum squat, right? Now this is preparation, right? This is preparation when you're setting things up. But the thing is that you and your team need a model, right? Because these are really quick switch ups, by the way, too, right? If we go, this is why I'm a big fan of role play in staffs, where again, I'm gonna create a scenario. Scenario is, okay, this person has no cartilage in their knees, right? So they can't get into deep knee flexion. What do we do? And it's like, I would put that on a coach and go like, what do we do, right? Hopefully they have the answer. If not, that's okay, because we educate. They'll go box squat, because now if they can't go below parallel and we have a pad and they can have a kettlebell here, like much more vertical shin, that's gonna be an option for them. The pendulum squat, they're gonna be able to walk themselves out and do that. A belt squat with a much more kind of hip dominant variation might be a great version for them, right? But we're gonna go through that. Why? Because when it comes time to coaching, right, you have to be able to, I'll tell you what doesn't look good. If you're on the spot and you're coaching and a person that's new, that's struggling with something, you end up going like, I don't know, what are we gonna do with you? Right now they stand out and they feel like, oh man, like I'm a burden, you know, I can't do these things. Versus like, great, I got two awesome options for you, come on, let's go. Right, and I'm gonna take them over there, I'm gonna show them that variation, and now they're like, they feel like, oh man, okay, I can do stuff. And then when they do it, they don't feel the pain, they feel empowered. So we wanna be able to do that with everything, right? So again, if we go to our next one here, split stance progression is just something we do a ton of. We got assisted bottom up or bodyweight split squat. So again, assisted bottom up, this is where suspension trainers really come into play, because I can start at the bottom. Why would I start at the bottom? Because the bottom position is a great setup for people, right? A lot of times starting at the top, they won't know where they're at. But if I can say, hey, we want a 90-90 position. I want you to be upright here. And so now drive up. And if they need that support, right, they have it. Right, they assist themselves as much as they need. Okay. By the way, like if you don't have, I really like any type of support, right? When you're close to the rig, we'll even load sometimes where they can load it, but for stability purposes, right, they might need a little bit of assistance here, right? And then from there, we'd obviously just go unsupported body weight. And then from there, we'd go goblet split squat or two KBs, right? So goblet, notice the goblet position, very prevalent, right? So we're here, or two dumbbells, two kettlebells, right? Hanging position. And remember, this doesn't show all the different things that we can do from a progression model, which might be load, right? Different positions, making it heavier, adding an eccentric, right? So if we add a 4, 3, 2, 1, drive up, that's gonna be more challenging. We're not including that. We're really talking about the exercises here, right? So from a goblet position, we would go to a rear foot elevated split squat. Now, pretend that this is one of the, I would say, perform better pads that we use that are much better, but we'd be here, whether it's a goblet squat position, right, or two dumbbell. So that would be our progression there. From there, we go to reverse lunge, goblet reverse lunge, or two dumbbell reverse lunge. And people will ask the question and say, why do you progress rear foot elevated split squat, before dumbbell? By the way, it's one or the other depending on what we want to achieve. So it's not like one is so much more progression. But here's the thing. Rear foot elevated split squat, we still have that foot stability, right? I'm still creating stability with that foot. And a reverse lunge, when I step back, now I'm on one leg, right? So here, I'm actually stabilizing with just one leg. That's why if you look at from easier to harder, because less stability, right? And then last one here, we have like a lateral lunge or cross behind lunge, right? So if I do a lateral lunge, goblet position, dumbbells down here, right? And then coming back up. Again, less stability. This is the frontal plane. So that's how we'll categorize them, even though we'll usually pocket this one in its kind of own movement pattern, if that makes sense. From there, deadlift progression, body weight hinge. Truth is, we don't really, like even the most kind of beginner folks, we're gonna load them in some way, right? There's very few people where we will just do for example, close to the wall. So pretend like this is the wall, and we'll teach them the hinge, be like, hey, reach towards the wall with your butt back as far as you can, right? Because it gives them a nice long spine. I'm feeling my hamstrings push back up. We may teach that in a strategy session, but very quickly there, we're gonna go to a, even like I call it belly goat swing or good morning, take a lighter bell, pull that bell through the chest because it gives them good posture. So now I'm getting core, chest tall, right? So it kind of looks like maybe it's a good morning. Dan John calls it the belly goat swing, right? We want to make them have a good position, get some load, feel their hamstrings, right? From there, we're going to a kettlebell deadlift, right? Where again, somebody is going to be beginner, we'll just keep loading this deadlift. And if they have a restriction in mobility, we're going to probably elevate it on some blocks, which we have a lot of blocks, right? They'd come back up here. From our kettlebell deadlift, we then go to either trap bar deadlift, and remember, elevating and lowering, that's a progression. So they're tight. We're not gonna go all the way off the floor with a trap bar deadlift. We'd probably go a little bit higher. Or an RDL, because remember, an RDL, if I have a barbell, I would unrack it, step back, and start from the top, which is actually my favorite hinge variation. So soft knees, now they can go to the depth that they can control and then come back up, right? And by the way, that's kind of like where we stay a lot, by the way, right? Our next progression is deadlift from the blocks, meaning elevated. So now imagine we have a couple of blocks, so we're pulling the deadlift from here, not from the floor. Then our next would be deadlift from the floor, and then we'd have a deficit deadlift. Interestingly enough, in our groups, we tend to stay kind of here, right? We don't do a lot of straight bar deadlifts from the floor. Why? Because we have a wide range of people. Do we do trap bar deadlift from the floor? Absolutely, right? Much more joint friendly. But if you got, 16 people in class, 2-3 new ones in a week, and you don't know, you've done the assessment, but their capabilities of, hip mobility, core stability, you're gonna start running into trouble doing stuff off the floor. And it's like, for what? You don't need it, right? We're trying to get strong in the hinge, so we're gonna do RDLs, we're gonna do trap bar deadlifts, we're gonna do elevated stuff, we're gonna do kettlebell deadlifts, double kettlebell deadlifts, we might do some sumos, right? We got plenty of different variations that we can continue to work. But you have to know your progression and regression model, okay? From here, push-ups, which might seem like, oh, this is easy peasy, right? Well, the first part is like using incline progressions, regressions. We try to do, while we do stuff off the knees with big team training classes, we try to actually keep people, for example, elevating them onto a box, for example, right? So now, instead of being on the floor, I'm elevated, okay? I can actually do that. And if that's challenging for them, we will go and elevate the barbell. Again, I'm gonna actually get a little bit, let's see. Cause I wanna show you, for example, we've had folks that, when they get started, this will be high for them, or this will be challenging for them, right? This is pretty damn high, but now we'll get them here, right? Good posture on those push-ups. Keep that core solid. And let's say we're doing sets of 10, and that might be challenging for them. But they'll progress pretty fast, so in 2 weeks, we got them down all the way here. And then we're just lowering that barbell, and we have a lot of rigs, so we can do a lot of barbells and elevate those up and down. because again, that's going to be the progression model at the beginning, is just that. From there, we go feet elevated or resisted. If I elevate my feet, now obviously if I elevate them on a box this tall, that's going to be much more challenging, but we have these BC blocks where we can just stack them, right? 1, 2, 3. So a lot of times, even in programming, week to week, or let's say every 2 weeks, we'll elevate a block. We'll keep the reps the same, we'll elevate the block. That makes it more challenging, right? And or we'll add load, band resisted, right? So we can go band around under the armpits. We can put a weight vest, chains. I just did a video on IG where I'm always doing push-ups in every program. I have a 25-pound weight vest. I have 3 25-pound chains. So it's 100 pounds extra at the top, full range of motion, right? So that can be progressed infinitely here, no matter how strong you are. But stability-wise, next one would be suspension trainer. And that's where, again, we take our TRX for a run, because now we have less stability, right? So, you know, the cool thing here too is that I can obviously, you know, I can drop this. So the higher up that I am now playing around with range of motion. So somebody may be able to do this, but not go all the way down to the ground. But this is where it's cool, because we can combine things. So we can go suspension trainer plus feet elevated, right? And we're now making that more challenging. This is why, by the way, it's very, very important to get this model locked in and do in staffs, right? From there, we got single leg push-up. Again, we're taking away 1 point of stability. We have things like a T push-ups, and then we go kind of like to multiple variations, right? Because single leg push-up, we're here, right? T, we're now gonna add opening everything up. And all of these variations can be, I would say, loaded up as well. And then we can start getting very creative, right, with the push-ups, which for classes is excellent, because you can always, put it this way, you can always make it a lot more difficult. I think that where things live as far as coaching goes is really kind of being able to regress and make a person be challenged, have a good form, and again, you know, feel like empowered and see their progression from, you know, week to week to month, because most people are going to be in their beginner stages, right? Once it's more intermediate and advanced, it's actually easier to give these cool variations, right? So that's, and remember, we have like a push-up progression model, and then we have, you know, for instance, a horizontal press progression model, like a dumbbell bench press. But I wanted to just give 2 more. So we got single leg stance progression. So that would be considered our, for instance, step ups. So we got body weight step up. I got a box here, but also, you know, many people will start with a much lower box, right? And we would just go body weight, coach them up, really, like I would say, make sure that they're trying not to push off that back leg. So just with body weight, kind of peeling off the ground. The cool thing is that as soon as you're, you know, if you need it, we will do things like having some type of support, like a rig, to just get enough support if you need it here, but really try to work that leg. Okay, so again, we can change the elevation of that box. Then we'd add goblet. So goblet squat to it, or hanging dumbbells would be our progression. Then we'd go to a single leg skater squat. Now, you've seen usually when I have a pad, a skater squat is this, right? Where I'm bending my back knee, tapping the ground and coming back up. I can load it with weight here. I can put a weight vest. I can put chains. I can put a sandbag, a zercher. So we'll really load the hell out of that, right? Then we have a single leg squat to box, which would be just tapping down, right? So the difference is a single leg squat to box, we would go here, tap and come back up. And then we'd have a single leg squat from box, which would be control down and getting that dead stop and coming back up, right? So that would be a single leg stance progression that, again, for, let's say we have a small group and goblet step up, you know, people are so strong that the weight becomes so heavy that their upper body is very challenged. Well, guess what? Now we're getting into the single leg skater squat or squat to box, right? And we can do that very quickly in a class. Just go pop, 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 and I'm showing it, right? And I just had an in-staff last week where I was breaking down, you know, we have to break down the whole training session in 4 minutes or less, preferably in a 3-minute time segment, showing all these exercises with coaching cues, making it clear. Very, very important, right? And then last one here, just as an example, again, we have a lot more of this, but I just wanted to show you kind of the mentality, how we work. Cable half kneeling single arm row. By the way, I want to show you something, right? Because you'll see a lot of this. We have the suspension trainer neutral grip row here, right? So, which is, you see this a lot. Okay, neutral grip row. And this is usually a progression because I can do a half kneeling cable single arm row with almost anybody. For some beginners, right, that might actually be quite challenging. So if I have a cable machine, right, I can load it with whatever weight, get them to engage, keep that good position, and now they're going to be doing that cable row, right, with good form. That's going to be my kind of, I would say, baseline. Then it will be to a standing cable row. I need some more stability now, right? I only have 2 points of contact instead of 3. So it might be here. From there, dumbbell bench row, right? So if this is a bench, I can go either 3 points of contact here, or I can go here, right? Where then I can start adding, I would say, each side, take 1 foot off, create some more instability, and progress that. And then have a barbell overhead dead stop row, right? It might be on the ground, I'm exploding, putting it back down. So that might be our horizontal row progression. And of course, each one of those can be loaded with weight. And here's the other thing too, right? When you look at your space, this is why this is important, where you might go and say, well, we don't have certain implements. So your progression model would have to change based on your facility, based on what you have available. So we just got, and they're not installed yet, something called anchor training. So it's basically going to be anchored to the rig, and it's a pulley system. Now we have a lot of, like, we have a cable pulley right there, one there, another one over there. But for group training, it's been difficult implementing some certain cable exercises because we have semi-private training going on, athletes, and then we might have a group. So now we're going to put probably 4 anchor training systems on the rig, so we can do what? We can do all our rowing, our half kneeling rowing. We can do chops. We can do all types of, staggered presses as a group, right? And then we can kind of integrate that, like I would say, our progression model, because if you don't have it, then you just don't include it until you do, right? So this is important because I'm just showing you some of ours, but I want to make sure that you have your own, and you don't have to go like, well, Luka's is like this, but then you, for instance, you don't have a pendulum squat, you don't have a belt squat. So you have to be able to train yourself, your team, to be very, very clear on what your progression model is so that you can use it. The experience, by the way, whether it's semi-private personal training, small group personal training, team, large group training, the experience of the coaching is dependent on things like this. Also, because if everybody on your team is like locked in, right? They're saying the same stuff. Oh, great. Listen, let's get you doing this. It's like, yeah, that's the same thing that Luka said. Okay, that's the same thing that John said. That's the same thing YT and Sam said, right? Now it's like, oh, we're on the same page. And I can tell you from experience too that, when we didn't do that and it was different names and different progression models, it kind of can throw things off. So with that said, hopefully this was helpful not only to see, how to implement it into a group training model, but make sure you're making your own system. Make sure you're dialing it in because, again, the training experience and the coaching model dictate, I would say, the quality of your business, and also just like I would say, how you deliver your service. So this has got to be dialed in. Okay. If you want more, I would say, information like this, and again, let me know below what you'd like to see. But for more tips like this, make sure to follow this channel. I'll see you next time in Coach's Corner.